Joining us now, the Democratic nominee for governor of Georgia, Stacey Abrams. It's great to have you back on the show. Curious at your biggest takeaways as to how your race is going right now, and if you'd like to chime in on President Obama's comments.
I think President Obama is absolutely right, and it's what we're seeing on the ground. Right now, we are walking away so often from the real issues that people care about. Abortion is an economic issue. It's been reduced to this idea of a culture war. But for women in Georgia, this is very much a question of whether they're going to end up in poverty in the next 5 years, because women who are forced to carry unwanted pregnancies end up in poverty within they're 4 times more likely to be impoverished in 5 years. They're twice as likely to be on food stamps. This is an economic issue, and it's being reduced to this culture conversation. We know that for families that have faced the issue of inflation, they care about housing prices. They care about whether they can afford to go to a doctor. That's why I'm fighting for Medicaid expansion in Georgia, and why we're having conversations about a governor who makes his money in real estate and will not spend $400 million in eviction rental assistance to keep people in their homes. And so it's important that we reduce these conversations not to these high-level professorial conversations, but to real impact on people's lives. And that's what we're seeing is working on the ground, and why we're seeing such turnout in Georgia.
So I'm curious. I was going to say in my 4 campaigns, I never had to talk about inflation, warned about it, but never had to say, hey, here's my idea on how you get grocery prices down or how you get rent prices down. But I'm not alone. This hasn't really happened in a generation. You're out there on the front lines campaigning along with everybody else, where people are looking to you saying, I can't buy a starter home like my parents did when they were in their 20s or 30s. I'm having trouble paying groceries. I'm having trouble paying my bills, let alone getting my kids into college. Gas prices are going back up. I'm so curious. What do you say to a voter who's struggling to even pay their rent now? Because, my gosh, rent prices for so many middle-class Americans just exploding.
Well, one, you say that global inflation is a global phenomenon, but the pain is local and real. So you don't deny what people are feeling, but then you explain what a governor can do. This governor has refused to address the cost of housing. He has said that he doesn't want to upset investors by giving local governments control over helping control housing prices. I want to make sure they have the help they need. He says that it's okay because he doesn't want to upset these investors, that 30% of housing units in Georgia have been purchased by out-of-state equity investors. I have a plan to solve that. He doesn't really talk about the issues that we're facing in healthcare. We're losing a level 1 trauma center. Georgia's going to be down to 4 level 1 trauma centers for an 11 million person population, 1 for the entire metro Atlanta area. And he won't do a thing to solve the problem by expanding Medicaid. So I talk about, if you need access to health care, it's going to be more expensive under this governor. We've already lost 6 hospitals with his leadership or failed leadership. And so you take the big issues and you let people understand what a governor can do to address it. I'm the only candidate talking about need-based financial aid, so middle-class families can send their kids to college without going deeper into debt. Those are the issues we have to talk about. And to the points you were making earlier, we have got to lean into the resources that federal Democrats have delivered to Georgia, that hardworking Georgians have delivered to themselves to create a $6 billion surplus in our state. My plan is to invest that money back into our communities, back into our families, back into our small businesses. My opponent wants to give it away as tax cuts to the wealthy.
So, Ms. Abrams, back to the root of Joe's question that he just asked you. You're running for governor of Georgia. I would assume, maybe incorrectly, but while abortion is an issue, it nowhere reaches the level of interest of voters in terms of the cost of gas, food, bread, milk, things like that. What can a governor, what could you do as governor to alleviate the concerns of Georgia voters about those livability, daily, hourly issues that they're confronted with?
But let's be clear. Having children is why you're worried about your price for gas. It's why you're concerned about how much food costs. For women, this is not a reductive issue. You can't divorce being forced to carry an unwanted pregnancy from the economic realities of having a child. And so it's important for us to have both and conversations. We don't have the luxury of reducing it or separating them out, but we also have to talk about what a governor can do. A governor can address housing prices. A governor can address the cost of education. A governor can put money into the pockets of everyday hardworking Georgians instead of giving tax cuts to the wealthy. That's what I talk about on the trail, and that's what's resonating. But let's not pretend that women, half the population, especially those of childbearing age, they understand that having a child is absolutely an economic issue. It is only politicians who see it as simply another cultural conversation. It is a real biological and economic imperative conversation that women need to have.
Ms. Abrams, this is Eddie Glaude. I want, first of all, congratulations. We're both going to be celebrating homecoming with Spelman and Morehouse this weekend, so we want to give a shout out to our alma maters. But I want to ask you this question about the home stretch. Here we are in the home stretch of this campaign, and what do you have to do to ensure that your base turns out, that independents turn towards you? So what is the message in this home stretch to get these numbers up in order for you to cross the finish line, as it were, and win?
What we've been talking about is we have a governor who doesn't care, he won't help, and he spent 4 years attacking our freedoms, weakening gun laws, banning access to abortion, denying access to elections. I'm running to give people more money in their pockets, more opportunity in their communities and their small businesses, and more freedom in their lives. Let's talk about elections, for example. We know that there has been this remarkable attempt by Republicans to equate what I have said to what Donald Trump has said. A tin-pot dictator tried to say that he gets to win because he wants to. What I have done for the last 4 years is lift up access to the right to vote, because I know what it means to be told you don't have the right to be heard. I actually faced an obstacle to being able to vote, but I had the knowledge and the wherewithal to fight back. But imagine if you don't. Imagine if someone tells you your voice doesn't matter. And so I've spent the last 4 years filing lawsuits to ensure future access to the right to vote. I did the work of rallying people and letting them know that their efforts were not in vain, telling them that they made progress. And I went across this country saying that voter suppression is a threat to our democracy. And it's real. You just saw what they did in Florida. And what's happening here in Georgia, a homeless woman in Forsyth County was challenged under Brian Kemp's new law and told that she couldn't vote, and then was denied a provisional ballot. They did that on purpose because we know that Joe Biden won by about 11,000, 12,000 votes in Georgia, 7,000 of which were cast through provisional ballots on Election Day. They know what they're doing, but they're trying to distract us with false equivalence and reductive arguments. And so my job is to remind people of not only what's at stake, but who's in charge. What Brian Kemp has done for the last 4 years, the last 12 years, is do everything he can to limit access to the right to vote. And I am rallying our people to understand that their voices matter. And if they turn out and show who they are, we can win this election.
All right, Democratic nominee for governor of Georgia, Stacey Abrams, thank you very much. And please come back. We appreciate your coming on this morning.